Imagine there is within you a hidden spring, an invisible river that flows beyond the years, beyond the age of your body, a river that does not originate from your heart or lungs, but from the very root of your being. That spring is your sexual energy. And no, it is not merely desire or impulse, it is a thread of light connecting you to the creative force of the universe. If you're listening to these words and you are over 40, 50, 60, or even 80 years old, I want you to understand something profound. Your creative energy does not diminish with age. What changes is how you use it, and therein lies both the mystery and the danger. Most people, as time passes, fall into automatic habits. Masturbation becomes a mechanical act, like turning on a lamp without considering the electricity running through the wires. People seek a fleeting moment of pleasure, but lose sight of the fact that with every release, with every euphoric peak, you are not just relieving tension. You are letting go of one of the most powerful forces you possess to sustain your vitality, mental clarity, and even your connection to the divine. Ancient cultures knew this. In Taoism, Tantra, and the hidden mysteries of East and West, creative energy was considered sacred fire, a fire that could consume you in seconds or be directed toward the heart, mind, and spirit, transforming into fuel for health, creativity, and the expansion of consciousness. This is not about prohibition or judgment. It is about awakening, about realizing that the energy you unconsciously expend today can become an inexhaustible source of inner strength. Every sexual experience, whether with yourself or another, can be a ceremony, an alchemy, an act of conscious creation. In this exploration, we will delve into what truly happens when you ignite your inner fire, why your sexual energy is more valuable now than ever, and how simple practices can transform that impulse into vitality, clarity, and spiritual connection. What you are about to hear is not a sermon or a moralistic warning. It is an invitation to rediscover the hidden power within you, a doorway that, once crossed, will forever change how you see your body, your desires, and your life. To grasp the magnitude of what we are discussing, we must journey back centuries, even millennia, and walk the dimly lit halls of temples where priests whispered truths the common people never heard. In these sacred spaces, creative energy was not seen as a mere physiological act, but as a bridge between the human and the divine. In ancient China, Taoists spoke of Jing, the vital essence. They believed that every drop of sacred liquor and every sensory spasm contained fragments of this essence, and to spend it unconsciously was like letting water escape from a cracked, precious vessel. To preserve and transmute this energy, however, could rejuvenate organs, strengthen the mind, and expand spiritual perception. In India, Tantra taught that creative energy is Shakti, the primordial feminine force that, when guided with awareness, ascends the spine as Kundalini, awakening dormant centers of consciousness. The goal was not repression but alchemy, turning desire into light, impulse into clarity, pleasure into spiritual ecstasy. Even in the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, conscious sensory unions and ritualized self-pleasure were considered acts of magic. There, it was taught that arousal is nothing more than the opening of an energetic channel, and directing that energy toward a higher purpose could influence matter, health, and even destiny. Over time, these teachings were hidden or distorted. Institutionalized religions began to label intimate potency as sin or shame. Yet, in the folds of sacred texts and the secret practices of monks, nuns, and hermits, the essential idea was preserved. Creative energy is the most powerful spark a human can cultivate. Today, we live in an era where intimacy has been trivialized, reduced to quick images, fleeting stimuli, and instant consumption. And yet, the oldest traditions whisper something different, that even in maturity, or perhaps especially then, creative energy can become medicine, a catalyst for longevity, and a key to accessing expanded states of consciousness. To speak of igniting your inner fire in adulthood is not a trivial or purely physiological matter. It is to open a dialogue with ancient traditions that invite us to stop seeing intimate acts as an end and start seeing them as instruments of transformation. In the following sections, we will explore how this energy operates in your body, mind, and spirit, and what happens when you consciously choose to stop wasting it and begin cultivating it. When most people think of igniting their inner fire in adulthood, They imagine physical sensations, a brief moment of pleasure or a release of tension. But the reality, viewed through the lens of energy and consciousness, is far more complex and fascinating. Picture your body as a temple. At its center lies an invisible cauldron where your vital essence simmers. This essence is not just chemical, though it involves hormones, neurotransmitters, and fluids, but also vibrational. Every time you feel arousal, this cauldron generates an intense, pure energy, akin to a spark capable of igniting an inner sun. In youth, this cauldron overflows, and even if energy is wasted, the body tends to recover it quickly. But as the years pass, the production of this vital force slows, making every drop, every impulse, every second of arousal more precious. This internal battery sustains not only your intimate life, but also your mental clarity, physical strength, and emotional stability. When the flame is ignited mechanically without awareness, a phenomenon occurs that ancient traditions describe as an essence leak. Physically, this translates to a momentary drop in energy, muscle relaxation, and hormonal shifts. Energetically, it means that powerful spark, which could have been used for healing, creation, or expanding consciousness, has been released into the void without purpose. The issue is not demonizing the act itself. The problem lies not in igniting your inner fire, but in failing to direct the energy it produces. The ancient schools of wisdom taught that instead of letting this energy disperse, we can learn to elevate it, circulate it through the body, and nourish our organs and brain. In modern terms, it is like redirecting an electrical current to where it is most needed rather than letting it escape in a fleeting spark. In maturity, when the body no longer regenerates its vital reserves as quickly, the difference between wasting and transmuting becomes crucial. The same act can leave you weakened and apathetic, or recharge you and make you feel more alive than ever. Contemporary science, though tentatively, has begun to confirm what mystics have long known. Igniting your inner fire triggers a neurochemical storm. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin all play their part. But what is rarely discussed is that we can learn to modulate this process, avoiding post-experience exhaustion, and harnessing the energetic peak to strengthen health, improve memory, stabilize mood, and expand creativity. In this way, climax need not be a discharge that empties you, but a controlled explosion that expands you. And masturbation, far from being a guilty habit or a taboo, can become a conscious ritual, a tool for self-discovery, and a catalyst for spiritual awakening. If we accept that creative energy is one of the most potent forces we possess, the next step is understanding how to stop wasting it and begin transforming it. This idea is not new. Taoist masters, tantric yogis, and Western alchemists all documented that the sensory current, when properly channeled, is an engine for physical, mental, and spiritual evolution. In these traditions, igniting your fire without awareness was like opening the floodgates of a reservoir and letting the water escape, water that could have turned the turbines of life. But when the art of transmutation is mastered, the same impulse becomes a current that rises through the inner river, what Taoists call the microcosmic orbit, nourishing every cell, every thought, every heartbeat. The key lies in a radical shift in perspective, not seeking pleasure as an immediate goal, but as a secondary consequence, or in many cases, not seeking it at all. This is not repression, but redirection. Imagine, instead of letting fire burn wood until it is exhausted, you channel it to warm an entire home through the night. The process begins with mindfulness. At the moment of arousal, your breath becomes your ally. Deep abdominal breathing allows the energy to rise up the spine rather than remaining trapped in the lower body. Visualize this energy as liquid light, radiant gold ascending and spilling over your skull, bathing your brain in clarity and your heart in serenity. A second essential element is conscious muscle contraction. By gently tensing the pelvic floor and abdomen rather than completely relaxing, you prevent total release and facilitate the redistribution of energy. The masters of old said this closes the lower gate and opens the upper gate, preventing the vital force from spilling outward before being utilized internally. Practiced regularly, this method not only preserves physical vitality, but also changes how you perceive desire. It is no longer an impulse that drags you along, but a resource you choose to employ. desire ceases to be a tyrant and becomes a powerful servant. Beyond physiology, there is a vibrational component. Creative energy, when elevated to the heart, transforms into tenderness, compassion, and genuine love. When raised to the mind, it becomes sharp intuition, focus, and creativity. This is sexual alchemy in its purest form, turning the instinctual into the divine. It is not an instant or mechanical path, but one that requires practice, patience, and, above all, a willingness to transform your relationship with yourself. Igniting the flame ceases to be a quick escape and becomes an act of deep connection, a communion with yourself that paradoxically leaves you fuller than before you began. In the silence that follows such a practice, you will not feel emptiness, but fullness. Not an energy crash, but a sense of expansion and presence. Over time, you will notice your daily energy increasing, your mood stabilizing, and your mind clearing. Theory without practice is like a seed stored in a drawer. It contains life but does not sprout. If you have come this far, you understand that your creative energy is not a mere biological whim, but a sacred current capable of nourishing every aspect of your existence. Now the challenge is integrating it into your daily life without falling into the automatisms that dilute it. The first key is conscious observation. This is not about rigid self-monitoring, but honest self-inquiry. Ask yourself, when do I feel the strongest impulses? Are they physical, emotional, or a way to avoid something I don't want to face? This simple act of questioning transforms unconscious desire into an internal dialogue, and that dialogue opens the door to self-mastery. The second key is using the breath as a bridge. When you notice an impulse arising, instead of immediately yielding, sit down, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Imagine that with each inhalation, you are gathering energy from the base of your body and carrying it to your heart and mind. Even a few minutes of this practice can completely redirect your energy. The third key is physical movement. Stagnation in the body fosters stagnation in the mind and energy. Walking, stretching, practicing yoga, or gentle hip and spinal movements help energy circulate rather than accumulate solely in the genital area. As the ancients said, water at rest grows stagnant, but flowing water remains pure. The fourth key is creative channels. Creative energy and creativity are twin forces born from the same vital source. Writing, painting, playing music, dancing, anything that awakens your imagination becomes a means to sublimate this energy. You will find that as you channel it, desire loses its compulsive edge and becomes a spark that ignites projects and passions. The fifth key is nourishing the heart. Elevating creative energy is not just about directing it to the brain, but opening the chest so it transforms into conscious love. Dedicate time to deep relationships, not necessarily intimate ones, but connections where you can offer attention, care, and presence. Authentic love is the great alchemist that turns desire into compassion. Finally, the sixth key is ritualizing containment. Set periods where you consciously choose not to seek immediate physical release. This is not repression, but cultivating patience, allowing energy to accumulate so it can be used for something expansive. Mark these periods with small ceremonies. Light a candle, meditate, write down your intentions. In this way, containment ceases to feel like deprivation and becomes an act of personal power. Living by these principles does not mean eliminating vital potency, but transforming it into a subtle art, a resource that accompanies you like an inexhaustible spring. Over time, you will discover that true pleasure lies not just in the moment of climax, but in the strength, clarity, and presence that arise from well-directed energy. At this point, you can no longer view your creative energy as trivial or reduced to a momentary impulse. You have seen that it is the hidden jewel of your inner temple, a fire that can burn or illuminate depending on how you tend it. What for many is a mechanical, forgettable act can for you become the center of a personal transformation. Your age is not an obstacle, but your greatest advantage, because in maturity, you no longer seek experience out of youthful curiosity or impulse, but with deeper purpose. The awareness you possess today is the perfect vessel for directing this force toward what truly matters. your health, creativity, and spiritual connection. Igniting your inner fire without consciousness is like pouring pure water onto dry sand. It disappears without a trace. But when approached with presence and intention, it becomes an underground stream, nourishing the roots of your vitality. This is not repression or imposed morality, but internal alchemy, the ability to take an instinct and turn it into a resource for your evolution. Remember, every thought, emotion, and intimate act is part of an energetic circuit that sustains your life. When you allow creative energy to accumulate, circulate, and rise, you open inner doors you never knew existed. Your skin changes, your gaze intensifies, your mind sharpens, and your spirit feels more connected. Now, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? For information unapplied becomes dust on the shelves of the mind. This is the moment to decide, to experiment consciously, to refuse to let habit rob you of your strength, and to turn every intimate moment into an opportunity to fortify your body and expand your consciousness. If you are listening to this, it is no accident. Perhaps it is the voice of a part of you that already knew this truth but needed reminding. Perhaps it is the beginning of a journey where you discover that true youth is not measured in years lived, but in how you steward your vital energy. The inner guardian awakening within you today does not demand perfection, but consistency, not the renunciation of pleasure, but the wisdom to make it an ally that sustains rather than depletes you. That is the difference between living automatically and living with mastery. And now, if these words have ignited something within you, I invite you to take the next step. What you do with your energy is what you will do with your life. The choice is yours.